Yo, what is going on, guys? Orange Road here, back to a video, and today we will be replacing the front shocks and the spur gear for my Traxxas / 1/10 scale 2-wheel drive receipt car. I'm going to show you guys how to do it, just so you guys have an idea. My front shocks are not in the greatest of condition, and my spur gear is plastic and a 90 tooth instead of an 86 tooth. So we will be putting this metal spur gear, 86 tooth, in there, and we're going to be replacing with these alloy shocks. I might have to oil these, I'm not sure. I'll show you guys how to oil shocks and how to air them out too if I have to put oil in these. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to remove your right wheel. If this is only for two-wheel drive, by the way, so the transmission's back here. We're going to want to remove the wheel right here, and you do that with the tool that comes with this or any size that will fit the hex nut for the wheel. So you unscrew till this nut comes off. I'm sure you guys are familiar with wheel replacement. Boom, there it comes off. Simplest task right here. Next, you're going to want to remove the gearbox cover, the spur gear and pitting gear cover. There's one screw here, one screw down here. These are the only two screws holding down this cover, and all they do is they just come up like this on both sides, and then this cover should lift out of place. Now keep in mind, don't put make sure you have a good size spur gear in here, because I had to modify the rear. I had to cut this off quite a lot over here, as you can see. Okay, now when you first get in here, it's gonna look all complicated. There's two ways we could do this. One way is to pull the pinion gear off, which is the harder way. You gotta grub screw here, you gotta make sure not to strip when you put back. Here's the simplest way right here. Sorry if I shook the camera there. The simplest way is to loosen this bottom mount here since it's on a swivel. And then once you get that loosened up, you grab the other end of the motor. My stupid screwdriver will come out of here. You grab the other end of the motor and you twist it back as far as possible. Mine won't go back that far, but it's enough to pull out the spur gear. After you have loosened this and pulled the motor back to one side, you will then grab an appropriately sized bit to pull off the screws on the spur gear. Now keep in mind, these are pretty tight, so you have to tighten these pretty good yourself, and from factory they come pretty tight if you've never replaced these. Now for slashes, I recommend the 86 tooth. There is one that comes with slashes when you buy them. There's always a replacement one, but don't use it. I use the 86 tooth plastic one and it stripped out immediately. I recommend buying an aftermarket metal 86 tooth one, an alloy one, because those ones last a lot longer and they don't break as much. These plastic ones, they'll last you a few months, and then they'll strip out, and then after they strip out, they're not useful at all. Your gears are going to slip. It's kind of like a real transmission. Once your gears wear out or your solenoid wears out, your transmission slips, it doesn't shift properly, and eventually it won't shift at all. Now, a lot of people always yell at you for not using flatheads for doing this. Just stick your bit under there from one side and pull it up. It'll come out eventually. You might have to pry from multiple sides. I've taken the spur gear out several times myself. That's why it was so, painless to take out. After that, you simply just fit your pinion gear. Screw holes line up. Some will come with hardware. Personally, if you're in a situation like this where your pinion gear needs to be moved up more for your spur gear to be comfortable, don't space it out, please. I don't recommend that. It's not a good idea. Please just keep it how it is. But if you do need to space it out, go ahead and use the spacers that come with it. That's why they're there. I don't know how exactly I'm gonna get this to work, but we're gonna find out a way. Now, I'm pretty sure, yeah, I didn't push this down all the way. That's why it wasn't flush. But this I think you put up here in order for that screw to stay flush, because it is kind of a riveted design on the new screws. I recommend using the new screws. If not, just use the old ones, but the old ones have a bigger head. So that's why these are there. These are there for the riveted extensions. I'm gonna put these in. You just set them on top and you screw everything back in. Simple as that. I'm gonna put them in because it takes a lot of alignment. I'm sure you don't want to watch me put these in for 10 minutes, so I'll see you guys after I'm done. Alrighty, I have it done right here. As you can see, everything's all nice and flush. Spur gear is perfectly firm in there. Now, here's the thing I would like to mention here. You can adjust your pinion gear however it needs to be adjusted. This grub screw right here, you just unscrew that, you move it up and down. Make sure that the flat end, make sure you screw it down on the flat end of the motor shaft. It's a circle, and then at the top there's a flat end. Rotate it to that flat end and make sure you screw that grub screw on top of that flat end. So what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to push your motor back up into the spur gear. Now keep in mind, you're gonna want this to be pretty tight against it, but let it have some play. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. I'm going to tighten this motor mount down because this is where I feel is the best position for it. I got to switch out my screw driver. But keep in mind, you don't want it to be too tight against it, otherwise you'll strain the motor and overheat it and possibly damage it. So what you're going to want to do is, until you find the best position, tighten it down like so. And make sure when you move it slightly, there's some play like that. There's a little bit of play, as you can see, when you move it slightly. This is pretty tight, but I like it a little tight on my end because I have a very high speed motor in here, and it's through this pinion gear so many times. and it really annoys me. So we're gonna put that up against it just a little more, and then we're gonna tighten that down firmly and properly. And as you can see, I still got some play, but boom, there we go. It's all good now. This should rotate freely and perfectly now. Now, my last recommendation, if you're running metal on metal, get yourself a tube of thrust bearing grease, or it could be valve line grease, it could be regular automotive grease. That'll work fine. Don't apply too much. Apply a respectable amount and spread it across. This is metal on metal contact, so you're gonna want a little more slippage. As you can see right here, I'm gonna apply a generous amount over here, and I'm gonna go ahead and rotate the gear like so. So that way it spreads a little bit. I'm gonna take my finger, spread it across the gear like this. You might wanna apply a little more than I did because it's not quite a sufficient amount. In between like this. And then put your finger on the inside like this and spread it around. You need a good amount. This is optional. You don't have to do this, but it's a strong recommendation so that way it lasts longer. I'm gonna spread this a little better than my catchy guys for the reassembly. And now that we're done with that, it's as simple as putting the 2 screws in here and dropping this back inside. Make sure you get this section under here because then you'll find a really painful process. Sometimes the screws can be a little bit iffy, so make sure you got everything all good and aligned, and then proceed to tighten down the inner screw first because I always find this one to be a real big pain in the ass to tighten down. And once you got this inner screw in here tightened down, it's gonna rotate forever if you try to go any longer, so just, you know, have a little bit of sense, see where it goes down, and it'll hold the cover, and this cover doesn't need too much force to be held in. And yeah, there we go. A little more sensible there. Boom. It's held in perfectly fine. Now let's move on to the front shocks. I'm gonna show you guys how to oil those because I'm positive those do need oil. Alright, we are on to the front shocks now. As you can see, my cap keeps popping off here. Now, these are aluminum caps. These are upgraded caps, but they just won't stay the hell on, and these are stock shocks, and I've got upgraded shocks on the back, and I'm like, I'm just gonna buy a set of upgraded shocks for the front too. Those are meant for the front. They didn't fit in the hole down here. Make sure you have thin bottom ones like this. Make sure they're thin like this, so that way they fit in the hole at the bottom. And then inside is gonna be a little hardware bag. I'll get to opening these and oiling them. All right, I'll show you guys how to do one shock and then you can repeat the same step on the other one. So this top cap has to come off, and what you have to do is what I usually find useful is you pull down the top of the spring and then you hold this firmly and then you unscrew it like this and it comes off. Inside, it's just empty. There's no oil. I highly recommend this Traxxas silicone shock oil for these shocks, or you could get thicker shock oil. It's your decision. Just don't make it too stiff. Otherwise, you'll find yourself hitting jumps and damaging more parts of your RC car because the shock absorption is not sufficient enough. So you're gonna want to check your oil and you're gonna want to fill this up to a respectable rate. You fill it up, you fill it up. I'll show you guys how to air it. Hopefully I have enough. If not, I have another thing of shock oil. All right, so get to about the top, and to air these out, you're gonna want to slowly push down like this. Now, if it spills out a little bit, you've overflown it, but make sure you're airing this out properly. All the air bubbles like this. Slowly compress it. As you can see, there's the air noise right there. Now, there's not going to be too much of an effect. If you leave a little bit of air, you'll be all right. It's not going to affect it too much. I'll tell you that right now. But try to get most of it out until that sound is gone, and then top it off with a respectable amount of oil after that. Like this, like this. Top it off. There we go. We're go. Now, all you got to do is put this top cap back on. At first, you're going to want to screw it on a little bit, and then you're going to want to hold the bottom and tighten it properly. Try to shove the shaft of a screwdriver in here where you're holding it from the bottom, so that way you can tighten it properly. And boom, you have oiled and aired out your shock. It is ready to be mounted. I'm going to do the same process to the other shock, and I will see you guys in the mounting process of this. All right, let's get to the assembly. If you want this to be just a tiny bit easier, please remove your front wheels. It'll help a lot in the process. Alrighty, starting with the bad side, my horrible side. Now, usually for you guys, this would be attached, assuming your shocks weren't pieces of garbage like mine and didn't come apart. But if you have the same issue, just unscrew the top cap. It's not a big deal. None of this ripped. You could put it back together and probably sell the original shocks for a little bit of profit. Used, I don't know how much you're gonna get for them. Probably selling like 10 bucks, maybe 5. I don't know. There's not much you could get for these. Upgraded aluminum caps. Yeah, you could get a little more, but either way, just remove this. This is the old cap. Tired ones. I think this one's still the plastic original cap. And then you're gonna want to remove the screw down here. This is the bottom mount for the shock right here. Now, it's a little bit finicky when you mount it down here. You gotta align it properly, and it's really agonizing. I've been through it all. It's annoying as hell to align this again. I'm gonna remove the screw because it's giving me issues. Okay, so another thing I'd like to tell you about is if it comes with hardware like this, you're gonna want to slide this into the top section here. I'm about to drop it. Holy shit, I can't do anything right. This is gonna slide into the top section here so that way your screw is a flush mount, and then this just goes to the top. This system, I have some pretty good recommendations on screwing the top in first, so that way you don't, you know, screw it up in the process. Usually I go for the bottom, but it doesn't matter what arrangement you do it in, it'll still go in regardless. It's just a little easier for me to get this top system in. So yeah, you can do it in whatever arrangement you feel is best for you. This is the system that we got going on here. You just mount it back on here. It's literally just an unscrew and screw back on. Debolt and bolt back on. It's pretty simple the way it is. Sorry if I'm hitting the camera. I need more space here. Because within the frame of the camera, it's annoying as hell to have this much little space when trying to do things. Either way, this just screws back onto here, nice and flush. Make sure it's good and tight. You don't want your shocks flying off mid-run, because that'll be bad. Once again, with the feel of the hand, don't over tighten, otherwise you're gonna strict the hell out of it. You know, unfortunately, I'm not responsible for that stuff, so you're on your own for that. For the bottom, you really gotta align this properly. First or second hole, doesn't matter. You can pick one, pick whatever one you think suits best. I'm gonna screw this in because it's gonna give me issues again, I guarantee you. I'm never buying eBay shocks in my whole life, I swear. My scissor did this. My scissor cut this plastic. This is fucking styrofoam. I don't understand. eBay shocks are ass. I'm just gonna put this in on this side since the other shock's fine. And I guess we're gonna have to roll 3 upgraded shocks and 1 stock one, because I can't. I'm sorry. I'm not waiting another 20 years to get shocks. Alrighty guys, and that's how you do your shocks. I hate this so much, but whatever. I'm gonna have to deal with it. At least this side is still fine. This side, upgraded side, this is just annoying. So yeah, as you can see, we have the hardware part up here, and then we have the other screw down here holding this in place. Pretty solid. I wouldn't be surprised if these break in like a day after usage, because plastic is just so goddamn cheap on these. It's annoying. The rest is, the whole thing's metal, then the rod's cheap ass Chinese plastic at the bottom. I don't know what to expect. Alrighty, this looks like garbage. I hate the mismatch. But that is how you replace your spur gear and front shocks. Please ignore my mistakes in the front. Cheap manufacturer's fault, not even mine. I hate how they made it slightly bigger than the original ones in the bottom so they can't fit. Alright, well, I'll see you guys in the video. If you guys enjoyed this, leave a like, don't forget to sub the channel if you like the channel, and peace out, guys. I'll see you guys in more tutorials.